But you know what? Look, you're coming on today, and obviously we heard the big news earlier on. Well, end of last week, I would say, about Kevin De Bruyne. You know, I was having back and forth with Rio on our podcast saying, is he the greatest ever midfielder the Premier League has experienced? I mean, that's another debate. But yeah, we just want to.
The answer's yes, isn't it?
Well, you know what? Thank you, because you're one of the few people that's agreed with me. I think there's a lot of sentiment towards the Lampard because of the goals he scored, and Steven Gerrard, he could do everything, but it's not Kevin's fault that he's won like 6 Premier League titles, a Champions League, 4 or 5 League Cups. It's ridiculous. I mean, Jack,
you can't. I don't think it's. When you're comparing midfielders and obviously what they've won, like Steven Gerrard didn't win anything, barely. He won one, didn't even win the Premier League, yet he is considered one of the best ever. He's in my top 3. Hands down, he's in my top 3. Yeah. I don't know if he's number 1, but...
Who's number 1 then?
Oh, you're talking to a Chelsea fan. What's the point in this? Anyway, we're here to talk Manchester City.
But this is the problem with this debate is that you're sort of debating with like nostalgia merchants, aren't you?
Literally.
Like, you all want to like... We all want to hark back to the mid-noughties when, I think we were all growing up watching football. So that's sort of, that's your like dream period watching the game. So therefore you sort of always misty-eyed when you're talking about that. But then if you look at like what De Bruyne has done over 10 years, it's just absolutely astonishing. But it's not like the stats, is it? It's not the numbers. It's just the way he makes you feel when you're watching it.
It's both. Jack, if he was so good, Liv, why did we not see Steven Gerrard do what he was doing in an England shirt? By the way, I'm a big Steven Gerrard fan.
But then you could argue that we haven't seen Kevin De Bruyne, the best of Kevin De Bruyne, in a Belgium shirt.
What are you talking about? They didn't win the competition, but they were getting further than England.
No. Listen, I think Kevin De Bruyne is one of the best midfielders the Premier League has ever seen. I'm not saying he's not. Me, no. He is one of the best. Hands down, he's one of the best. I just personally don't think he is the best we've ever seen, but I can understand why people would think he's the best we've ever seen.
What makes him better than Frank Lampard then?
Pardon?
What makes Frank Lampard better than him? Sorry.
I mean, obviously, you arguing with a Chelsea fan is difficult because I'm always going to say Frank Lampard, but I don't think we'll ever see what Frank Lampard did again. The amount of goals that man scored from midfield is the most underrated, one of the most underrated things in football. He scored over 200 goals from central midfield. Do you know how ridiculous that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's one.
But anyway, this isn't right. Okay, this isn't about
let's
Frank
put
Lampard.
the KDB versus other players just on ice for a moment. But tell us, if you are watching, where you rank KDB. We'll come back to that maybe a little bit later. But Jack, let's just start with the backstory here. It sounded like Manchester City have known for some time they weren't going to try and extend Kevin De Bruyne's contract. How did this exit come about? Was City surprised by KDB's post? And was it inevitable in your eyes that he was going to leave at the end of this season?
Yeah, it did feel inevitable, really, just given the way the season's gone. He had big offers last year. I know for a fact there were quite senior people at City sort of March, February last season that thought last season was going to be it, but then he'd spoken to Guardiola and decided to do one more year. They were basically going to see how it went, but I just don't think he's come back from the injuries sort of sprightly enough to be able to play week in, week out in the Premier League, sadly. Which is it is a little bit of a sad end, really, the way that it's finishing. But if you put him into any other league in the world, I think he'd still sort of have a massive impact. I mean, it sort of reminds me of when Guaghan went to Barcelona for a season and was absolutely amazing. And then he came back to the Premier League and it's like, it's a different sport. It's all moving too quickly for him. And I think that's sort of the same kind of things happen with De Bruyne without him going away. Like it just caught with him a little bit.
Jack, just on De Bruyne, obviously you probably argue and say he's irreplaceable, but do you think City are in a good enough place with what they've got right now, or do you think they're going to look to find someone that's similar to him in terms of the way he plays? It's obviously hard because it's Kevin De Bruyne. What do you think City are going to do about him leaving?
Yeah, I asked Pep about this last week and said, like, of all the like legends of the club that they've had leave over the last few years. So you look at like Company, Aguero, Fernandinho, David Silva. They've replaced all of them really. But De Bruyne is different in that his actual skill set that he brings to them. My argument to Pep was that elite football doesn't really have that many players like De Bruyne anymore. Where I know there's a big debate about players being overcoached and it all being quite robotic. Like De Bruyne is the antithesis of that. So they can't go like for like because you've not got anyone that sort of, is just so like raw in the way that he plays. I think I've written last season and in the last couple of months that Florian Wirtz is someone that they really like at Bayer Leverkusen. Now, whether they're able to do that financially remains to be seen. But he's like the sort of number one that they really like and really want in that sort of like number 10 position in behind Haaland, and they think him and Foden will be able to sort of dovetail together quite nicely. And then obviously there's the links with Gibbs White, who's another sort of ball carrying midfielder, which they've signed a few of those recently, which is they've signed ball carrying midfielders and then not allowed them to ball carry in games, which has been quite interesting to watch. So I think they'll have, I think they will sign a midfielder this summer. It's just sort of like depending on how much money they throw at it.